the only leading GOP candidate, or Democratic candidate for that matter, that has signed the tax pledge for the Americans for tax reform. That's what the Grover Norquist put together. And it's a big deal. In a race like this, with so many people saying they're for lowering taxes, I wanted to get out there and make sure people heard me loud and clear. I'm committed to lowering taxes, and I'm just as committed to lowering spending. Unfortunately, increased spending on government programs has become the standard by which Congress measures their commitment to solving a problem. They bought into this idea that those who are promoting a culture of dependency are selling, and that is that spending is the measure of how much you care. I used to try that on my parents at Christmas time. Didn't work. I made a pledge to the American people, and I'll repeat it here tonight. If Congress sends me appropriations bills which exceed inflation less 1%, I'll veto those bills. Stomach to do the cutting themselves, then give me the line on a veto that other governors have, because I'd like to veto, by the way. I didn't line on, I sort of just vetoed. Actually, as governor, I vetoed line items 844 times. I can't wait to do that in Washington. Now, you may have seen or perhaps heard of my ad about Republican spending. When we had both branches of the government, both the legislative and executive branch, we sometimes didn't act much like Republicans. We spent too much, we earmarked too much, and our ethical status became the punchline for Jay Leno. When Republicans act like Democrats, America loses. It's time for Republicans to act like Republicans. Circumstances. As David said, I came into my job and there was a $3 billion budget gap facing me. And then I looked at my legislature and it's 85% Democrat. And, you know, there are states across the country raising taxes, even Republican states looking at the big deficits because there was a recession going on. The combination of those circumstances is pretty unusual. And of course I had the Boston Globe nipping at my heels as well, calling for higher taxes. By the way, there's only one tax I would sign. That's a tax on newspapers that print bad stories. But the legislature and I did not raise taxes. Instead, I cut spending. And because I cut spending, when the revenues came back because we were attracting jobs because of our having kept spending down, we were able to put that excess money into a rainy day fund and save for our future. And by the way, I also cut taxes. I made the investment tax cut permanent. We also created a manufacturing tax credit. We gave seniors support they needed for their real estate taxes. We enacted sales tax holidays. And we made commuting expenses tax deductible. I don't like commuter taxes. And then there's one more I want to tell you, one of my favorite stories. The legislature passed a bill, this is hard to believe. They passed a bill calling for a retroactive $250 million capital gains tax hike. A $250 retroactive hike. Now in my state I had the power to amend bills and send them back. Now they could throw up my amendment or they could adopt it. Now how was I going to get the Democratic legislature to accept my amendment? Because my amendment said instead of a $250 million tax hike, there'd be a $250 million capital gains tax rebate. Well, that was their reaction when they saw my amendment. But I had an idea. I went to the Department of Revenue and I said, I'd like you to fill out an official bill, calculate for each person in the Commonwealth how much more taxes they'll owe if the legislature gets their way, and send every citizen the bill in the mail. And so those tax bills went out from the Department of Revenue, and they got this bill, and they called their legislator. And as Everett Dirksen used to say, when they felt the heat, they saw the light, and they passed my amendment. Things you have to do to keep our economy strong, as you know. I believe in opening markets. markets to American goods around the world. And I know the Democrats are going to be singing that siren song of protectionism. It would be good for about 5 years, and then America's products would become more and more uncompetitive, and our future would be bleak indeed. The right answer is not to put up moats around America, but instead to say that America is strong enough to compete with anybody in the world. I spent a career in the private sector. I spent a career, well, I visited some 20 countries doing business, rather than some 20 countries, probably visited over 40, doing work to negotiate investments, doing work to help manage businesses and so forth around the world. And I know what it takes to strengthen our economy. I know why jobs come in and why jobs go. And I think it's high time that in the White House we had a president who's actually spent a good deal of time in the private sector so that he can build America's economy. Let me mention one more thing, and that is, you know, in the international world, our products carry a very heavy load. It's known as embedded taxes. It's estimated that our products face about a $100 billion disadvantage around the world. And the reason for that is because of a WTO ruling. They say that the taxes Europeans put on their goods, direct taxes like the VAT, those the government can refund to exporters. But the taxes that are embedded in our products, indirect taxes, like income taxes, those we can't refund to exporters. And as a result, we have an unlevel playing field around the world. And if I'm president, I'm going to go to work to make sure that our trade is on a level playing field around the world. You know, liberals look at the challenges in the world, this inflection point, if you will, and they want to turn to the source of what they think America's strength is. And because they've all spent their entire life in government, or suing people, one or the other, they think that America's strength comes from the fact that we have a great government. And we do have a great government, but that's not the source of America's strength. The source of America's strength is the American people. Hard-working, risk-taking, energetic, faith-loving. And you are the American people. That's the source of our strength. Always has been, always will be. And the world is a safer and more prosperous place because of the American people and because of the greatness of this great nation. And it comes at a price. I was at the airport in Boston just a few years ago when I was governor, when a soldier was coming home, not off the passenger ramp, but down the conveyor belt from the luggage compartment. It was a casket. And a few soldiers and I and some state police officers and a couple of friends of the family were there at the side of that casket. And as it came down that conveyor belt, well, I'll tell you, tears welled to my eyes, and I put my hand on my heart, and I looked up into the terminal. And there across all the windows in that terminal were passengers who'd stopped to put their hand on their heart. We love this country. We love the people who've sacrificed for this country. It is a great nation because of our great freedoms and for those who shed their blood that we might enjoy this freedom. Offer one last brief experience. The former Prime Minister of Israel, Shimon Peres, was in Boston speaking to a small group in an apartment. Someone asked him what he thought about the war in Iraq. And he said, you know, before I respond to that, I need to put it in context. He said, America is unique in the history of the world. He said, in the history of the world, whenever there's been war, the nation that wins takes land from the nation that loses, because land has been the source of value on the planet from the beginning. One nation, he said, has laid down hundreds of thousands of lives, this during the last century, and taken no land. No land from Germany, no land from Japan, no land from Korea. America. America is unique. America will fight for liberty, for itself, for its children and grandchildren, for liberty-loving people around the world. Colin Powell added that the only land we took in that great war was enough land to bury our dead. It is essential that this nation remain strong, that this nation build upon the economic vitality of this greatest power of the earth. It is essential that we